Hey, there you are. I can see you out there. I just realized as I turned on my feed monitor, I'm killing the music, so we're going live. There it is. We are going live. Welcome, everybody. Making it fun. Rob is here. I'm waving. I'm excited you're all here. I've got the screens coming together. Hi, Andrew, I love it. Don't know what the stream's going to be about, but you're looking forward to it. Andrew, I don't know what the stream's going to be about today. Actually, that's not true. I've got a big plan for us. I'm really excited. And awesome, there you are. Can everybody hear me okay? Let's get rid of this graphic. Hello there. Okay, can you see me? And is everything going all right? Because I'm afraid that one of my cameras stalled out. And if you know me, you know I am playing with my technical challenges and I'm self-producing and self-recording and self-presenting and all of that. So I'm just going to take a second here and monitor the feed to make sure that you can all hear me okay. If someone will let me know. Cheryl, yes, you can hear me okay. Fantastic. And hopefully the screen will not stall out. Yes, Kim, yes, 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 you're all here. Radical. I love it. I'm doing the happy dance. Okay, so what do you all think of the finish of the studio, right? I feel very pleased about the way it has come out. So right now you are looking kind of along the side wall. I've put in a design wall, which I want to talk about. And below the design wall is a cool pegboard, which I'm not so sure if I'll be able to show you or not. I have some new holders to make the cameras work a little bit better. So at any rate, that's part of today's idea. But while people are logging in before we get into the lesson plan, I want to talk about some of the cool things that I just got in the mail from Michael Miller. So I'm bragging a bit. And while I'm bragging, I'm also going to go back to that main camera and see what's going on over there with the main camera. And it is not working. That stinker of a main camera is not working. So what I'm going to do then instead is I'm going to go be the hero real quick. You can see I'm wearing my hero shirt. Okay, I'm going to see what I can do about that main camera. Sorry, kids, I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm going to throw out some wonderful new super fabric to check out, and I'm going to let you enjoy this for a second. How cool is the hero line, right? And then I'm going to see what I can't do about fixing that main cam for us. Okay, let's see. Hopefully, I brought back that main camera, but it's still not working. I'm so sorry, gang. Oh well. Yeah, last week's comments were you loved it when I dealt with the audio and technical failures live or the corner failure live on the board. We're not going to spend hours talking about fails. That's no fun. But I apologize. I'm not sure what is going on with that main camera. So again, I'm going to take 2 more seconds while you're all coming in there. Hey, Joni, I am. You like my quilting superhero t-shirt? I love my quilting superhero t-shirt. I feel like a quilting superhero as well. I feel super good about it. Okay, there we go. And let's go back to this main print on our hero so you can enjoy this a little bit better for a second because I'm still trying to reboot that main camera. We're only a few minutes into today's video. We've got a good half hour together. I'm in no rush. Isn't that the cutest stuff there? I just love it. Okay. Yes, Margaret, I am going to be working in a moment to show you exactly how I did the design wall and the pegboard, both the carpentry and the construction and the putting it all together conversation. So at any rate, not exactly sure what's going on with my main cam, kids. So it's not working, so I'm just going to fly with it. We're just going to roll with it, and we're going to come back here, and I'm going to play this way, and eventually we're going to get this main camera situation figured out. But let's not waste any more time on today's show, because I want to show you the first few lines that I am aware of that are shipping out right now to your local quilt shops. So these are some really cool things that are happening. This is part of my new job with Michael Miller Fabrics, is to try to make everybody aware of what's shipping and the timelines and stuff. So I'm really, really excited about this as well. And so I did, my friend Joni was watching, she noticed my quilting is my superhero, superpower, excuse me, quilting is my superpower is what my shirt says. And then down there it says, what is yours? So please also let me know, what is your superpower? Like I brag, right? Like there's things I do every day that make me feel awesome about myself. And the days I'm not feeling awesome about myself, I have to really scramble and remind myself to do those things that make me feel awesome about myself. Getting to be a quilting professional, if you want to call me professional, makes me feel pretty dang awesome about myself. And so knowing that you're all out here and watching along is super cool. Please make sure that all your friends are subscribed to Making It Fun on YouTube. This is how we grow our community, and I want to do a bunch of fun stuff with that. I actually shot some fun videos this morning just on some piecing techniques, some ruler management, some rotary cutters. If we have time today, I'm going to kind of give you the rundown, and then in a day or two those will be edited and they'll be up on YouTube for all of you to enjoy. So at any rate, this is what I love to do. Quilting is one of my superpowers. Let's jump into the overhead camera and talk about this beautiful fabric line we've got here. So coming to the stores on the trucks right now is Hero. And I'm going to say, sorry boys, it's a little girl powered. You can see by our awesome, and this has actually got, excuse me, there's some metallic here in our money bags and whatnot. But all of our characters are girls, even though it's a good boy looking colorway. The heroes are definitely the wonderful ladies here, and there's just some super fun things going on with them, and I love this. I just think this would be great for journal covers, little even fun scrunchies and silly stuff like that. It's got the words brave, happy, smart, strong, fierce. You know, those are things that we just need to remind ourselves to be constantly brave, strong, right? Like me. What's with this hairdo today? Like, you guys are thinking I'm wearing a wig or something. The worst part about presenting and watching myself live is I'm like, are you really gonna let your hair go out like that today? Well, I don't got a choice. It's connected to my head. So, any rate, super fun, superheroes. And then you've got some neat purples and pinks also in here, which I just think are awesome. Cooper loves it. I love it. Reading some comments too. Being a positive personality is a great super trait to have. Oh, sorry. Great question, Cooper. This is all Michael Miller Fabrics. These are the new February shippings from Michael Miller Fabrics. I forgot to mention that. Michael Miller Fabrics is the sponsor of Making It Fun. I actually stole their name off of their blog. So let's just keep that rolling, right? Now, another really neat one coming in here that I think is pretty interesting, actually. It's Dilly Dahlia, if I'm saying it right. It is. There you go. And look, I can even zoom in with my super cool overhead zoom cam. Boop, just like that. And I can make the noises for you so that you feel, that you're really involved in the technology and the sound effects here at Making It Fun. I'll just include the sound effects as we go, being that half the cameras aren't working again today. So Dilly Dahlia is radical. Two colorways. We've got a bright, and then, gosh, I just kind of want to call this one like the coffee colorway or something. I don't know what to call it, but I sure like it. And so I want to start with this one. Neat dark browns on the background, and of course our cotton coutures. We've got some really cool earthy solids to coordinate. I like the openness of this fun little simple flower. But then the butterflies are really elegant. Like there's some nice detail in there. I can bring you in a little closer to see that as well. So those highlights are butterfly highlights. They're not bad lighting from overhead. And then this is just, I think, a really cool, fun floral print. Again, it's just gonna kind of hit that youthful feel in quilting and or like maybe some bag construction or something. So Michael Miller's Dilly Dahlia. And that was the coffee-ish colorway, I'm calling it. I don't even know if they've got a name for it. I should learn this stuff before I present it. You know me. And then look at this. This is super cool. That when you turn it into the blues, it's just radical. Oh no, I'm not following the comment. Somebody just said this is going to be theirs, but I don't know which one it was. Oh, they Dilly Dahlia. Oh, that's fun. So look at those butterflies on the blue. Like that's just rad. I just love it. Here's another great piece right there. Anyways, I'm just thinking this is going to just be terrific stuff. So that's another fun print line arriving in your local quilt shops any moment now from Michael Miller, and just loving the abilities to share with you what's going on. It's kind of fun. I also know what's coming down the pipeline too, and I've been working on some of those videos, so that's really fun. Now this one I'm going to show you. It's Strata. Now last video or a couple of weeks ago, I was supposed to try to sell you my book, Color Strata, which I forgot to do. And this isn't an advertisement, but if you wanted to get the book, of course you could at robappell.com. But that's not what we're here for today. Color Strata is a series of quilts I did a long time ago. The Strata collection is a new series, and I don't know how much of this I'm supposed to tell you or not, but it's a new series of fabrics that we're putting together that are some in-house basics that companion well together, and the colors are genius. So let's go to our overhead so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is the first. There are 4 groupings coming out. The first one is our basil grouping, and it's just gorgeous. Now, I'm a landscape quilt maker, so when I look at some of these textures like this and like this, oh my goodness, I can do so many things with these kinds of textures. And as a matter of fact, we're going to talk about some really great projects with some fusible applique. But what I like about this color palette is how the blues and the greens and then our purples and the basil colors are actually can all come back together and just work so nicely. So this is a really fun, good grouping that's coming to the shops. You're going to see some really cool projects playing with all of this. And the concept is texture and color collide to just make awesome. And I think the Michael Miller Fabrics has done a super cool job with this. And I'm pumped up. Oh, the main camera might be working. The main camera started working. Oh, now the overhead camera just got hit. That wasn't any good. I just slammed the overhead camera, so when we go back to overhead, it's going to be dicey at best. But the main camera is working. Of course, it wasn't zoomed proper, but now it is. Hey, look, there's the set, gang. What do you think? You see Jerry's got a home over there, and everything's looking pretty sharp. I'm glad to see the main cam is working again. Check back in some comments, some feedback. Great. I'm going to take a moment and just scroll through to make sure I haven't missed anything. Perfect. Great. Oh, and I could just see in the big overhead, you saw me smash the upper camera, which is genius also. So yes, you know, one of the reasons I wanted to do more of these live videos is because in the live videos, things happen and it makes it entertaining and fun. And I love to teach live classes and interact with people. So I guess interacting with my technology issues is kind of like interacting with people, but I'm reading the comments and I am interacting with people and I love this. Great. Oh, and Cooper's loving the Strata as well. All right, gang. Well, let's move on. Oh, there was one last piece I wanted to talk about now that we're on the overhead and the main camera is this. And bigger conversation than just an awesome floral coming at you here. But look at this. Gorgeous, gorgeous fabric. Now, this piece of fabric here, let's go overhead. Look at the incredible depth of color in this, okay? And yeah, it sounds like I'm building up to a story because I really am. I'm going to put a couple more of these down here real quick. Because this week, there was a conversation booster out there on Abby Glassenberg's While She Naps podcast about digital printing. Folks, if you haven't heard, this is what we refer to as digital printed fabric. versus standard traditional screen printed fabric. And the reason a lot of fabric companies are drifting that way is because it's actually more ecological, eco-friendly. It's a little easier on the management of inventory, but the depth of color and the size and the scale and everything that can be done with digital printing. Now, I have to ask your forgiveness because I have not worked with digital fabric much. I don't have a history with digital fabric much, and I know that people have concerns about digital fabric. And so I would like to hear from our shop owners and our fabric users, maybe a lot of you that use like Spoonflower. Spoonflower is, to my knowledge, one of the first digital public printing places where people could buy digitally printed fabric and in small pieces and small quantities, and the concerns were washability and longevity. I don't think it's as big of a problem as people were concerned about originally, but I don't know. And making it fun here on YouTube is a community, and so I want to hear, I'm going to check in on the comments over here. Yeah, it is definitely gorgeous fabric. Oh my gosh, happy spring. People are loving the floral. So, but also feel free to let us know what your thoughts are. If you've used digital fabric, I know there's a whole other conversation going on from the designer side and all of this and how does it work. You know, I think it's a real benefit, but I'm mostly concerned about longevity, heirloom quilts, that kind of stuff. But let's go back to this main print and talk about, like, look at the scale, and repeat is no longer a problem. I talk about repeat not being a problem. My dear friend Carly Porter over at honestfabrics.com has just started this business. Carly Porter, you know that name. She's an award-winning quilt maker. But you have heard Honest Fabrics. They're the ones that now take this digital concept, right? And they're now producing digital fabrics at, I believe it's 108 by 90. So you could buy a whole cloth quilt. So you have no patchwork waste. You have it exactly as you want it. You can design it as you want it. It's great for the machine quilters that want to just do machine quilting on stuff, but you can get this kind of translation. So the world, due to technology, why am I standing in my home with 5 different old iPhones stolen from neighbor children? These are broken iPhones I'm using to film this stuff. Maybe that's why the main camera wasn't working earlier. To be able to use technology moving into the future with crafting, I think is pretty awesome. But there's also something to be said for the way that fabric had been done in the past. Digital prints, you know, as a landscape artist, there's no real bleed through. So I couldn't use the back of this like we used to on Hawaiian shirts. Or maybe if I wanted a flower that just looked further away, would I be able to use the back of it? It's going to be just the front side that's usable. So like I said, people have some issues and people have some excitement about digital printing. I want to hear from our community what you have experienced with your digital printing. One of the color questions is, I wondered about the color lasting. I did some reading on that one specifically. That was my number one concern. And the folks that had been taking, and Michael Miller Fabrics is not the first company to start producing lots of digital fabrics. I believe Hoffman was one of the first ones to do a really good job with it. And there are people that have been using those fabrics now for the last several years in quilts because they've been around for 3 or 4 years. And they're saying they're fantastic. That was the reading I found out last. And I think there was even a mention of that on Abby's conversation on her blog. So I think longevity, the better our digital printing process gets, the less concern I think we're going to have with longevity of color fastness. And then that's just going to become a better blessing, because if you're not aware, when we used to make fabrics, oh gosh, am I going to destroy my set right now? I am. I don't know if I can do it. I don't want to do it. I just can't. I can't tear it apart. The selvages, you've seen a million selvages. The selvages have the little dot codes along the side. Well, you're never going to see many more that have more than 16, because the situation is you can't get that many screens, and they're 24 inches. There's limited in the screen printing process. So the thing that I personally, as a designer, get excited about digitally is there's no limit size-wise or color-wise. So we can do photorealist stuff. Also, remember, I said I'm a landscaper. You know what I'm getting at? Let's do a comments check. Perfect. Happy, happy spring. Yeah, I'm loving it. Awesome, gang. Okay, let me give you one more overhead of this incredible. Oh, this was Michael Miller's Paradise Dreams, and it is a tropical digital line. Not all of the prints are the same floral, just to show you they're all different florals, and incredible. And I'm thinking like lapas or, wraparound skirts all the way through quilts and home decor and all kinds of fantastic stuff. So anyways, that, my dear friends, is today's show and tell. And one of the things we want to do with these live videos is be able to get you what is most current and happening. So I hope to be able to present at least once a month what is shipping from Michael Miller this month to your local quilt shop, so that you can go to the local quilt shop and say, Rob told me to come in here and get my Michael Miller, because that's what we want you to do. Exciting, right? Now, are we ready to move on to the design wall? You ready to talk about the design wall and the pegboard? Do I dare take you for a little walk to show you the pegboard? Let's. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the phone. I'm going to take it off of the mount. I am totally being at risk over here. And what I've done, mostly due to space management, is I have created my pegboard down here along the wall, kind of where you can't see. But remember the ironing board we made on last live video? This can be slid back, so I've got a nice amount of space to stand in here at the design wall. Now, I didn't tell you to take your Dramamine, so I'm going to put you right back over here on the tripod where you belong, and lock that back down. Let the colors adjust there. Now, let's talk about what is the design wall. And I brought my leftovers, although I don't have any of the pegboard left over because I bought it at the hardware store and I paid the extra $1 cutting fee to have the pegboard and the pieces I made for the table that you can't see, but I'm working on right now. I had them cut at the hardware store to the exact size because it made them perfectly square and perfectly cut and no splintering and all that. It made life so much nicer for me that way. So at any rate, one of the things I have also done here is, let's get into the supplies. For the design wall, I went to the local hardware store and they didn't have. It was too small of a hardware store. They didn't have the rigid foam insulation, so I went to the Home Depot, and I think I spent all of $8 for one of these pieces, and it is 1/2 inch thick, and it is 48 inches, well, it's 4 foot by 8 foot, 96, I almost messed that up. So at any rate, it is a 4 foot by 8 foot piece, and because my wall is wider than the 4 foot, I actually just took a razor knife, I cut a slice off the bottom, and I spliced it in, and I just duct taped the edges. And then that whole piece was prepared. I did not take the time to put any batting on this piece of board. However, I want to stop right here. I many times in my life have made a portable design surface that I can lay flat and I can also iron on. And if you're thinking about doing that, I strongly encourage it. Same with this foam board. It works beautifully. It's super strong, super powerful, and you can pin to it and you can carry it. It's not going to snap on you. So you could then wrap it in batting so that you could iron against it. And then you're going to wrap it in flannel. And yes, this is a Michael Miller funded channel. I appreciate that greatly, but Michael Miller does not have at the moment a cool gray that is 108 inch wide flannel. So I went out and I found a really cool gray 108 inch wide flannel so that I could wrap my whole wall and my board first. I wrapped the wall and the board first. I ironed it, and then I took what are called tidy pins. And with the tidy pins, oh, look at this. I'm going to be terrible. I'm going overhead. You can't see me run around to my notions drawer and get the box of tidy pins that I had forgotten to have handy. It's live, so it's cool. So the tidy pin is here, and I think you can kind of see it. Gosh, there it is. Okay, so it's a 2-part pin, and you kind of squeeze it together, and I just pinned them straight into the edge. That way, as the fabric started to pull against it as I put it in tight, it kept everything secure and where it belonged up on the design wall. To frame out the design wall, I basically took what was a 2x2. So this was a, 1.5 by 1.5. They call it a 2x2. Then I took it across my table saw and I cut a chunk out this way and a chunk out this way, so that when it was all said and done, it could sit right here against the wall. And basically, once I built my frame, and I'll step out of the side here, go to the camera, right behind the guitar, but you can see the frame up in the wall there. Let me back out there, up in the corner of the wall. You can see the whole frame is just holding this in position. And so technically the design wall itself here is actually not mounted. So I didn't put any screws on my home wall, just along the perimeter with a few screws. It's very lightweight. I'm not at all worried about it falling down. Over time, the flannel will probably sag. I could have hit it with a spray base or something in the middle, but I was just moving that fast and it was about 1 a.m. when I was building that a few days ago. So that ended up being pretty cool. Now the pegboard was something that I learned working on my wonderful daughter's room over the summer, and I put up some little fun things a while back. But same kind of thing. For the pegboard, I took my 2x2, took my 2x2 and I went over a 1/2 inch, and then I just cut in a groove a couple of times with my table saw. And I'm pretending like this is the pegboard. It's the same 1/4 inch thickness that the pegboard was. And so then this just locks in here like this. And so then when I made my 45 degrees on my corners, I was able to make a really nice mitered framework so that my pegboard also locks in, so that all of the framing is all the same, so that the room looks nice and everything is working really, really well, so that now we have a set that we can play on and in while we're here goofing around at making it fun. So I realized I needed to do a little battery plug-in, and I'm going to go ahead and bring you into the overhead shot of the plywood, in case you were wondering what plywood looked like, and that little groove piece of wood there while I check the comments. Ah, Andrew busted me going into the drawer. Okay, Peg, you're looking for the tropical Michael Miller fabric online. MichaelMillerFabrics.com has a gallery, and it's called Paradise Dreams. As far as finding it online at local quilt shops, it's probably still in the UPS truck. So that maybe Peg, that'll help you with that question a little bit. Yeah, portable design walls are a great idea. You can certainly wrap them up and take them with you. Very good ideas. Okay, very cool. Now let's go back to the live front room camera. Okay, so now I was showing you the little bits and pieces about how I did my design wall and how I did my pegboard to get ready to build up the whole set. We did a little show and tell already on how awesome is the new fabric lines that are shipping out in February. And, oh, you're welcome, Peg. I'm monitoring comments over here and I'm folding up fabric. I'm just going to take a little deep breath actually for a second and just let all of you have a turn and think and hear what you're all thinking for a second while I turn on my iron. I would like to spend just a few more minutes today. I would like my videos to be between about 30 and 45 minutes because I want to take the time to play, but I also want to take the time to teach you all something if I can. And yes, pegboards and design walls and all that stuff are awesome, and you probably should make all of these yourself. But the truth is you'd probably rather talk about rotary cutting and patchwork and all of that kind of stuff. So I started putting together some little quick videos for this channel that you can refer back to or you can send to your friends so they don't have to watch 45 minutes of Rob talking on and on over here to get into how to use a rotary cutter or when to change your blade kind of stuff. But I saved us a little time today to just talk about rotary cutting management and ruler management and some of the things that I think are super important, mostly for safety and a little bit for accuracy. So I'm going to take myself a second here, get a glass of water going. Check in on a few more of these comments. Oh, I have a request from Margaret, about doing some quilting on YouTube? Yes. I am making you this promise that you will see a lot of machine quilting from me very soon. I just signed a wonderful piece of paperwork that has contracted a group of individuals. I'm just being goofy. I'll tell you eventually. But yeah, the whole other side of the room will be quilting machines very soon in here. And part of my idea is to make it so we can run these cameras on both sides of the room and do flyovers on our live videos and do a bunch of machine quilting. I will tell you this much. I have a long arm coming into the room, and it will be my first real long arming experience, and you're gonna all live it with me minute by minute, first experience to the last, and we're gonna have a ton of fun with that. So that's a great comment, Margaret. Thank you. Great. Yeah, we're gonna do lots of little short videos, like sharing like the snippets exactly, on just quick little ways to manage your sewing skills, just to try to improve a little bit. But again, I know that YouTube is where people go to learn quick things. Quilting is one of those quick things. And so I want to make it so that people can maybe find little quick lessons from Rob that they can watch that are not so project specific, more tool specific or technique specific. So with that said, let's drink this water and move into rotary cutting and rulers and maybe a little bit of seam allowance, if there is time allowance. So that's already a mess. That's a good sign. Okay, throwing stuff everywhere. Don't throw the lumber. Get in trouble for that. Oh, I dropped it. I didn't throw it, but I dropped it. Okay, rotary cutters. I got a bunch of them, and it's really cool. Let's lay these out here quickly in our overhead. Boop. Oh, doop. That's the transition noise sound effect. Presto, boom, just like that. Rotary cutters, the coolest rolling razor blade tools in the sewing industry. The only, anyways, okay, stop goofing off. Now, what I want to talk about really quick is what you see on the table is a variety of actual sizes of blades and different handles and different safeties and all kinds of stuff. And I'm not an expert, but I'm pretty knowledgeable. One of these I invented myself, so I have an opinion. But let's just try to give you the facts here. The blade is what we're discussing first, the size of the blade. What you're looking at over here is a 60 millimeter blade. The 60 millimeter blade, the bigger the blade, the deeper the cut, the straighter the cut should be, the more, it wants to just keep on track, the more layers of fabric you can cut safely. So your big 60 millimeter blades are used for cutting through lots of thick layers or lots and lots of folded layers, especially while using a good large ruler to keep your hands safe. Okay, hopefully that makes sense there. Back to the overhead so you can see the way the handles work a little differently. Now on these two cutters, they're both Olfa. Yes, I have a lot of Olfa tools. They've been around forever. I've been quilting forever. I love them. I love them. That's it. These handles here, same blade. This one, in order to make the blade work, if you've never used a rotary cutter before, I have to pull this back. Now this blade is exposed. You can see all of that silver is all blade. And if I was to cut myself with it, it would make an incredibly deep cut. Okay? So this, in order to make it back into the safe position, which we want to do after every cut, you want to put your blade safe after every cut. Therefore, I like the squeezy kind because with the squeezy kind, if I'm squeezing it, it's active. If I'm unsqueezing it, it is disabled or it is in the safe mode there. So I prefer a cutter like this. I also started making quilts while I was making babies. I guess that sounds terrible. My children have been around my studio ever since they were young. I drew my first fabric line with my daughter Ruby sitting on the table next to me. So they've always been around the sewing, and so I've always wanted something that is more of a safe automatic than a pay attention to what you're doing. But either way, 60 millimeters, big cuts, bigger blades, bigger disaster if you're not safe with your blade. So that's why I've always had spring loaded on my 60, but I've not always had it on my 45s. Now the 45 millimeter cutters are the ones that we use primarily in our rotary cutting for all of our straight piecing, our triangle cutting. We're using it up against a ruler. We're primarily cutting 4 to 6 layers with it. And just the same thing. Of course, this is the cool new 40th anniversary Olfa cutter. Thanks, Olfa. But as I pull this back, the blade is exposed on the 45 millimeter blade. And this kind of cutter here, it has a trigger so I can go from light or heavy duty. And when I put pressure down on it, then the blade itself is just gonna go ahead. The blade is gonna cut through the fabric, but it's like if you dropped it, it would be mostly covered. I'm sure if it landed on your foot, it would make a mark. It would probably make you bleed, but I don't think it would do the damage as if this fell on your foot while it was open like that. That would probably remove a toe because we also barefooted, at least in the right foot. I do. Anyways, that's why I gotta wear socks. Anyways, moving on. The 45, like I said, 4 to 6 layers up against, again, a cutting ruler to keep your hand safe. Let's talk about the 3 small ones about at the same time. The 3 small ones are really cool, especially that gray one you see there on the table. Now, the 28 millimeter, that's again the size of the blade, is going to give you the opportunity while you're cutting to go ahead on templates and stuff, is to cut and keep around maybe an arc or a curve or some sort of weird position, maybe 4, 5, 6 layers full, but of fabric, I should say. But it's going to give you the opportunity to make some wild cuts. I've got a fun new template that I'm coming up with. That template itself is going to have an arc in it. That's a pretty tight arc. So the 28 millimeter cutter is going to go ahead and be the first tool. I've already made sure that it fits in there. 28 because I can cut 4 or 6 layers with the template, but it still fits in on the template. Okay. The last 2 little cutters here are our freestyle cutters. And now when we talk about holding a rotary cutter, the traditional grip on a rotary cutter is, you know, the squeeze, the grip, the death grip like this. And all of the activity then with the rotary cutter comes out of our elbow and out of our shoulder. It's all this motion, right? So with these freestyle cutters, they're meant to do free cutting so that you can do curves and things. So I just cut a nice little curve there. The trick is we need you to hold it like a pen, not like a rotary cutter. So I've changed the grip. This is an 18 millimeter cutter. And, oh, I see people sitting out there. They love their shark. We're getting there. We're getting there. Let me do my advertising. I'm building up. So with this little cutter here, I first started using this to make my curve cuts, and it works very nicely for curve cuts. But I actually did have a concern of a safety issue of it takes a lot of pressure to cut, and I wanted to have something that would be a little bit safer. And then I also found in playing with it, yes, I did put a safety grip. That's why it's called the shark. This is the dorsal fin here on my tool. But I also went ahead and made a 14 millimeter blade because I realized in my engineering development that the smaller the blade, the easier the curve is going to be. So I can make some really intricate little curves with this very, very simply, right, with my little shark rotary cutter there. And the shark cutter, just like all of the other cutters, has the same style of hardware and everything. So what you were really looking at there was mostly just the size of the stainless steel blade, the 60 being super large and doing all your deep, heavy, thick work, all the way down to your little 14 for doing all of your little freestyle work. Couple of different grips on your cutters, some for ergonomics, some for safety, some for both, right? Now, let's take another moment. Oh, let's do a quick comments check. I'll come on over here and comments check. Okay, Andrew, this is a good comment, and I'm really going to read it all the way through, buddy. Thank you. Okay, so Andrew, if I'm realizing it, he says he's running off of the edge, or he's drifting away a little bit. So let's talk about bringing in the rulers in a second, okay? So we'll finish with that today. Maybe we'll finish at the sewing machine if I can push it all in there. I want to change the blade really quick, and then we're going to talk about Andrew's question, because how we hold our ruler and where we approach the ruler with the cutter makes a big difference, especially over time. Okay, so cutters, we're going back to overhead. I'm going to zoom you in a little bit deeper so you can really see what we're doing here. Most all cutters are the same. They're going to have a dish on the back, or a nut technically, and it's got a recessed area that goes down over the bolt, or what I call the post. It also has this little wave washer, and that wave washer is a concave, and it waves at me as I'm looking at the back of the cutter, right? As I lift this up, you're going to see the blade fall off there. And then let's point this out first. This big piece of, it's actually metal, it's solid, it's really sturdy. Its job is to hold that blade sturdy against the cutter. So I like to lay it down first on the table. I then drop my blade on top of the post, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop my cover closed safely over there. I'm going to drop the wave washer. Now the wave washer, maybe if I set it right here for a second, do you see how it's got like a rectangle or an oval opening inside? Well, there's a cutout on the bolt or the post that is designed to receive that. So again, it's just going to wave right back up at us. I'm going to take the little bowl side or the recess side, and I'm going to set it down on here so that I can start to tighten this up. One of the things I like to do is I like to hold this front end with my finger as I'm tightening this up so that it doesn't rotate for any reason. And you are not required to make that super, super tight. It's actually a tensioner device. So if I let this be nice and loose when I'm using my rotary cutter, then if it's loose, the cutter is going to go nice and quick across the mat and cut right through the layers of fabric with ease. If I'm finding that I'm either getting away from myself, Andrew, possibly this is it, but probably not. Or I'm having the other one that we find a lot is people are kind of pushing at the fabric. They're having a hard time, like you're getting little teeny ripples, like not really surfable waves, but little shore break anyways in front of it. It's because your thing is too tight. And so the wheel's not rolling effectively, and it's actually pushing the fabric before it cuts the fabric. So we want it loose enough that you can cut the fabric nicely, and then tight enough that it's safe and secure. Okay, let's see if we can solve Andrew's problem right here. And one of the things I'm working towards, so please, like I said, make sure you're subscribed, make sure you're following along for all of this stuff, is that, oh, I lost my train of thought. I was reading a comment. I apologize. We'll come back to it. Okay, so cutting. First thing with cutting is when I'm cutting a piece of fabric, I'm going to make sure I have the setup good in our overhead. First of all, when I go to cut a piece of fabric, I do not start at the tip down here. If I start at the tip down here, I will start to quickly chip away at my blade, causing nicks, and I will start to chip away at my ruler, causing all kinds of problems down the road. Whenever possible, I start 1 inch down at least. That way my blade is secure against the edge of the ruler, and then I can go ahead and make my cut all the way through. Now, what you couldn't see was my body language. So let's go all the way back out to the big camera, and let's talk about this on the drift. Now, if I'm going to cut a piece of fabric, and I'm cutting it right here, I have all of this good pressure, and I can cut right here, no problem. That's really easy for me. I have all of this downward strength. However, if I have to cut something and it's a long 24-inch cut, what I find is because I'm putting pressure here and I'm putting a lot of pressure here, Andrew, we need you to take the blade and put it up against the edge of the ruler. That's the only way to keep it accurate. And then I want you to actually lean into, like I'm pushing into the ruler. Some folks will put a slight angle here so that they don't jump up on top, and they're actually staying just under the edge of the ruler, especially while using templates with curves. I found that that was very successful for me too. But either way, we need to push our blade into the ruler. Therefore, I want to secure this ruler good. I do not want to have my hands anywhere near cutting zone. A lot of us will keep our fingers up. I know some folks that will actually put a pinky on the outside of their ruler here to help secure their ruler, right? All of this I'm saying, if I'm holding it down here with all of that strength, as I come down here, I'm going to start to push. Did you see that happen? I'm going to start to push across here, and it's going to make problems. So what I've learned to do, if I have to make a really long cut, let's pretend, I'm going to make a cut here, and I'm going to start sliding, and as I get my cut going on here, at a certain point, I know I don't have pressure at the end of that ruler. I'm going to move this hand I have stopped this hand from moving, and it comes up here. Now I've shifted onto my toes, so all of my weight is nice and firm, but all moving forward out of the ends of my fingers, like they're going to turn white up here. And then I can finish that cut without pushing my ruler and veering. So most likely what's happened for Andrew is he had a couple of bad cuts, pushing in too much, and this went like this. So now we're trying to cut by kind of like eyeballing it, like, oh, maybe it's close enough. We've got to have contact, but we have to have security. So what you'll probably find with your longer rulers is contact and then repositioning. Rock climbing, 3 points of safety, right? Always have some 3 points of contact, always have a little bit of pressure down the road. Now, a lot of my rulers have a grip strip on the back. I love the strips that are out by Guidelines for Quilting. I have those rubberized donuts from 3M on some of my stuff. Here's a great example of one of those rubber donuts. Oh, and then you can also see my fluorescent lights above. There, oh, no, you can't. Yes, you can. No, you can't. There you go. Boom, there's your rubber donut. Those are awesome, and the donut holes are also usable for smaller templates. Ask me how I know that. It's so fun to play live. This is great. And it's so fun to have all of you out there, and there's more and more people now than when we started. This is even cooler. Gosh, Andrew, did that help at all? Let me see if I can find you in there. Oh, somebody's confessing to putting their rotary cutters together. You don't have to confess. You don't have to confess to putting your rotary cutters together wrong. There's plenty of other folks out there we can blame for teaching me how I learned that, right? Okay, Andrew is afraid of pushing into the ruler and shaving it. If you start in the ruler already, you can't get the blade into the shaving mantra. Don't push into the toe, keep it all 90 degrees, right? So you're not trying to push this way into the ruler, you're keeping it flat. Give that a try. I'd love to hear how that follows out. Oh, and last week everybody found out I got the official email address, rob@michaelmillerfabrics.com. So I can actually put that on the screen there. Boop, there it is, rob@michaelmillerfabrics.com. And I check those, so if you will send me an email, I would love it. We love the comments in these videos too. But when these are live feed videos, it's a little harder for me to go back and find some of the comments. So if you have a specific question that I can really help you with, and I would love to try to help you with, please email me. The rob@michaelmillerfabrics.com works great that way. And with that said, we've got just a few more minutes until it's time for me to go get my kids from the high school. So let's talk about a little bit of sewing strategies too. And then maybe we've got a really great startup. What if, let's see, where are we at? Which camera are we on? We're on the main camera? We are. Okay, look at this. What if somebody was watching this video right now that's never made a quilt? Like this is like, I want to make a quilt. Look at this quilt behind me. It's amazing. And no, we still do not know who made it yet. And one of these days, I'm just going to pretend like it was mine, but it's just an amazing quilt, right? Super easy, patchwork, beautiful color layout. And somebody's watching this and says, I want to try this. I want to learn about this. So that's why some of this information is so important, especially for me to try to share it out there, because I want to help get everybody at the beginning as I'm recreating a bunch of these videos and putting out a bunch of new content. This is where I'm trying to go for it. So, last thing we should probably talk about, we talked about some cutting. We talked about the different cutters. We talked about how to use the ruler. Let's see if we can talk about what I do for a straight line. So I've got another camera I've rigged up today. It's the sewing foot camera. Ta-da! And the sewing foot camera is right here. And before we even bring fabric over, I want to talk about this little gizmo. This little gizmo right here is my edge guide. On this particular sewing machine, it has screw ports. Those are for screws. The one in the back is for oil. My book told me that. I read it, or I looked at the pictures, I can't remember. Nonetheless, if you don't have a screw port, you probably have a magnetic piece that you can put down, or there's also some really cool ones that are put down with like a tape, or you could use a ball of masking tape, of course, or a business card or something like that. So at any rate, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to screw this down, tighten it up so that it's making a 1/4 inch. And even if it wasn't making a 1/4 inch, what it would be making is everything the same, okay? I have a small piecing foot on. This happens to be a straight stitch only machine. And so it's going to make for a nice little bit of patchwork. Now we need to sew some straight lines together. So I was cutting earlier. These two pieces of fabric should be good. One of the things I like to do though is I like to press my fabric. So zoom out. I'm going to hit this here with the iron real quick. Like I said, I was goofing around cutting these earlier for the little demo I was doing. Then I'm going to bring my fabric to my table right before I get to my sewing machine. And I'm going to lay out my straight edges and make sure that they're right sides together. But one of the things I like to do, let's zoom you in. You see how I can basically see the purple base right along the edge, just barely, right along that edge. That allows me to know that as I go back over to the sewing machine, I have both of those pieces of fabric basically right up against that wall or that edge guide. And now that I'm here, I'm going to take a few stitches, and I've started actually just a stitch or two into the fabric. I'm going to take a few forward stitches, and then I'm going to back up. And then I'm just going to go ahead, and this hand right here is just kind of guiding. It's putting a little bit of pressure. I have a hand back here, scissor holding my fabrics. And I have a sewing machine between my arms, or excuse me, a camera between my arms, and it's still easy to do. I like to sew at a nice pace. The faster you go, the sloppier it's going to get. I've got one last trick, but let me first back stitch here. I'm going to run a thread cutter. Let me move the microphone away. Okay. One of the other tricks I have started doing though is I've started shortening my stitch length. Is I use a 2mm, not a 2.5. Even in my straight work, I started doing it a long time ago for my bias work because it just helps keep a nicer straight stitch. The job of the feed dogs are to move that fabric, so the bigger the stroke they have to make, the more things can go poorly. Wiggly stitches. So the shorter my stitch, the better I think it's going to work. So I've started doing it on all of my sewing as I've gone down to a 2 instead of a 2.5. It also helps lock on your stitches if you don't want to backstitch. As we get ready to iron, I think you can see what I'm doing at the ironing board. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to hold, first I'm going to just run my iron across the top. That sets the stitch, sets the threads. Now I'm going to hold my darkest fabric in the air. I already chose that while I was putting it down on the ironing board. And now I'm just pressing up against that thread. And then I'm going to fold that seam over like that for a really nice, straight, crisp seam allowance. Presto, seamo. How cool is that? Nice and straight, right? And so the key really was the edge guide here, so I always have consistency, going just a little bit slower than you would think I would sew. And I've learned that over time, especially because I do so much of my sewing standing up because of the way that I have been working in front of cameras for so many years now. And then the other thing is just taking that shorter stitch. I'm not sure if I said that already or not. No, seam allowance. Seam guide, I should say, stitch length, and then pace. And it just helps so much. And then getting that crisp iron. And I do press after every seam. I don't do a bunch of seams and then press them because I feel like that pressing at each seam just allows for the best possible setup as I go. So with that said, let's do a quick comments check and see how you are all feeling about this stuff. Sticky notes work great for straight lines. That is an absolute true statement. The sticky part is a perfect barrier. I agree. Great question. I hear it all the time, Bethany, about the magnetized stitch guides. The magnetized stitch guide or a magnetized pin cushion or any of those things around your sewing machine isn't going to affect it, right? So here's my magnetized sewing pin cushion near my sewing machine, right? However, that said, the way we affect electronics negatively with a magnet is we pass them back and forth over and over again. So if you have a high-end electronic machine and you're wearing one of those magnetic wrist pin cushions and you're running it underneath maybe some sort of sensor or something in here, could be bad. Probably not, but could be bad. But a magnetic pin cushion over here on the table, stationary, no problem. A magnetic edge guide on your machine, no problem for the electronics, but the magnetic guides will move over time. So I like to put the magnetic guide down and then I tape it down too. You know, that sticky note idea is a great idea. Thank you for being a part of the community with that resolve. And if any of us have a drawer full of old sticky notes, and now I know you will hear me sneaking over to the drawers on the other side of the room, so I can't sneak over to get my sticky notes. So great. Oh, Lisa, yes, she's going to start her first quilt really soon. I love it. Okay, here's another fun question Bethany's got. Two gold star questions for Bethany today. And let me go ahead and check the watch because I just have a few minutes. I'm actually using a product that is called Switcher Studio. It's an app that I paid big money for, and it uses only iPhones and iPads. So I have a main camera, which is my standard iPad that I use for all my other work. Right now it's a camera. I purchased an iPhone a few days ago, so I would have two iTools with me. I also needed something very reliable because this camera right here looking at me when I go here is an old iPhone with a shattered screen that I picked up from a wonderful young lady who her mom cuts my hair. And then the phone that is the overhead, which I smashed earlier, which it's still operational, is another smashed screen iPhone that I picked up from that young lady's brother. So yes, my hairdresser has donated two phones. This is the brother-in-law's phone. That's actually a great iPhone here. So it just works really good on the Switcher Studio because I can do things like the zooming in, the zooming out, or if I would say them right. So depending on what I'm doing and where I'm moving, I can do different fun stuff. And if I needed to on the fly, I could technically correct some color corrections and some different stuff like that. But mostly just make you all dizzy and nauseous by poking the buttons I'm not supposed to poke. Okay, let's do a couple more quick check-ins for notes. Awesome. Well, you have been a fantastic audience today. I appreciate you all being out there. I'm going to wrap it up because it's almost been a full hour. And like I said, I got to jump in the car and go I get to jump in the car and go pick up some teenagers, bring them to the house. They're going to write some music this afternoon. It's going to get rowdy around here. I'm going to make some more videos and have a bunch of fun. I just love getting to do this kind of stuff. So thank you for helping me make it fun as we do this over and over again. So while I'm saying this, next week, actually first thing tomorrow morning, I leave for an 8-day teaching trip. So I will be in North Dakota and then Cape Cod. How cool is that? So I'm going to try to go live next Wednesday. I'm going to try to go live on time next Wednesday. Who knows what's going to happen? If I don't show up, don't give up on me. Because the following week, my wife and I might be, don't tell the kids, we might be taking them for spring break snowboarding. So that means that I probably won't show up then either. And don't tell my boss because they're not supposed to know this stuff. So long story short is, yes, we have a schedule to go live Wednesdays, 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern time, but I am a free spirit, so who knows where I'm going to be. I know next week I'm going to be out teaching and I'm going to try to have something really fun live for you from the classroom. It should be really cool, but it won't be very long. It'll be a little quick check-in. So make sure you're putting in your comments. Make sure you're sending out the emails, rob@michaelmillerfabrics.com. I love you all. I appreciate you all. Subscribe and spread the word and keep making it fun.